one day, my mom and I, we'd heard the traffic was really bad. And we lived out in Thousand Oaks, so that was a good 45-minute drive to Burbank. And on bad days, it was an hour and a half. So we said, well, I better leave early today. So we left early, but there was no traffic. And we got there very early. And now I was going to where Mr. Disney and I used to, every once in a while, he'd get up from his table in the cafeteria, see where he'd eat, and he'd look at me and he'd go like this. And I, like that. We had a ping pong table there, so we played ping pong. And he loved to do that. He'd come and play a game of ping pong and then go back to lunch with whoever he was talking with. So I'm sitting out there in front of the cafeteria in the morning because I'm just killing time. I got like 20 minutes or so. And I'm looking at this kiosk, and in the kiosk there's this dome, and I see the word Epcot and Disney World, and there's this, something's going on here. And as I'm doing that, I hear this voice behind me, which I recognized immediately. He goes, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Morning, Mr. Disney." He goes, "How you doing?" I said, "Good." He said, "You're early." I look at that now and I go, how in the world, he knew that I had an 8 o'clock call. He said, you're not supposed to be on the set till 8. I said, "Yeah." He said, "You got about 20 minutes. He said, come with me. Well, up to his office, and to a certain part of his office, then he showed me the whole model. And at that time, it was a dome city. So it was absolutely fantastic to look at and to understand. He was so clearly excited about it. And I did think, that was probably 1966. It probably wasn't too long before he died. And then I looked, and then 5 years later, I was here for the opening of this. And then I like being here during the 50th anniversary of it, because I can't help but look around and imagine what he would be thinking, because I think it would blow your mind. I think it would be as crazy great as these places are. You can't imagine what this guy would have come up with.
Yeah.
You can't. He was so much fun that way.
Yeah, it was very much so.
Just genius.
What can you tell me about the Red Schoolhouse?
Oh yeah, that Red Schoolhouse was right on Dopey Drive, and it was where we all went to school. That was where everybody who, from Annette Funicello at the time, we all went to school at the Red Schoolhouse. We worked wherever we were working on whatever stages. And many times, I'd see, he'd walk by the door, he'd look in and go, "Do your schoolwork, out of it." And right outside of that, there was a bench. And my mom would often sit underneath this tree and this bench. And one day I finished schoolwork, and went out to see my mom, and she said to me, "Hey, some of the girls that are auditioning," we were doing the family band. One and only genuine original family band. Maybe the worst title for a movie ever in the history of bands. And my mom who was a dancer, she said, "They're gonna go over to stage 4 to rehearse and audition." She said, "You want to go see them?" "Yeah, okay, let's go see the dancers." And I knew it was important to my mom because she liked that. And actually I had to get something, so I said, "I'll meet you there." So she went down. She was there for about 5 minutes before I was. I got what I ever had to get out of school, and then I went down to stage 4, and now I'm watching everybody dance. And I'm terrified because I'm doing a musical, and I'm not a singer, and I'm not a dancer, and I got to do that stuff in this movie. So I'm actually kind of like pulling teeth a little bit. But I'm watching them, and my mom suddenly kind of elbows me, and she says, "You see that girl with the funny blonde hair, funny haircut?" I said, "Yeah." She said, "She's going to get the job." and her name turned out to be Goldie Hawn. So Goldie
is that the first time you met Goldie?
Yeah, I didn't meet her then.
Oh, you didn't
Goldie
meet her,
had
okay.
met my mom walking by. She said she saw this woman sitting at a bench. She said, "Excuse me, do you know where they're auditioning for family band?" She said, "Yep, stage 4, right over there." So she actually theoretically realistically met Goldie first. And then, and then when I was doing the show, I must say, I was 15 turning 16. And,
Right.
But I did like watching them warm up.
Oh. Well, you also, I remember watching you and the Osmonds. You actually did go around Disneyland, I believe, together, right? And you did a behind the scenes.
Disneyland After Dark, I think it was
like
called.
a haunted mansion.
It's a classic YouTube thing.
Yeah. What are your memories about that experience?
Well, it was mixing absolute abject terror and horror on my part, because I had been talked into doing this album, which I didn't really want to do, and we did it, and now I had to go sell it and this and that. But anyway, at that time I was under contract at Disney. I owed them a show, they owed me money, and they came up with this Disney After Dark, and I'm going, oh God, no. And my dad says, the Osmond brothers are going to be in it. I went, oh, great! We had done a television series in 1963 called The Travels of Jamie McPheeters, and the Osmond brothers and I were in the show together. They were just a great family. Great bunch of guys, great family, great mom and dad. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people. And it was many years. This was 63. This is probably 70, maybe 71, something like that. And it was great to see them again. And we did this. Yeah, we did this Disneyland After Dark, and you can actually YouTube it. And I think I had to sing. One of the songs on the album was "Sugar, Sugar," and I had to sing that on at the whatever one of the stages there. It was agony. Pure agony.
Yeah,
and the guy, but the Boston brothers were
sing,
great. They said, "You're doing all right. Hang in there." You know. I said, "No, man." From the Sugar, Sugar. What do you mean? You mean like?
They want to see if you'll sing.
You mean as if it were song? I will never do that again in my life. There's not enough money in the world. I need 4 or 5 bottles of this.
All right, I'm going to move us on quickly to. All right, so you did a bunch of, I think, 3 films with Dexter Riley. Obviously, to me, the one I remember is The Computer Who Wore Tennis Shoes.
Yeah.
So anyway, this is obviously became real. All of them became really family classic movies. So talk to me a little bit about what you remember about that movie or any of the 3. And
well, originally it was called Something's Happened to Dexter, and then that became The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. There were just lots of fun people in that, like Cesar Romero, Joe Flynn, all the gang of
Right.
Medfield College, and someone who became a lifelong friend, Mike McGreevy, who was my great friend Skylar in those shows. And then there was a time period too. This is not very well known. There were some the director and the writer. A great guy named Bob Butler, who was the director of all 3 of them. Well, by the way, we didn't know there was going to be 3. We just did one and then another one and another one. And in those days, it wasn't
Right.
like sequels. It was just, well, let's do another Medfield show. So he had a heart attack, and then he had a pacemaker. And so halfway through the second script, they called us, because Mike and I had worked, we were getting to a point in our lives where we were starting to, I got how this works. What about this, right? And it was great. Disney was a phenomenal place to work at in that regard. I was allowed to, because I'd grown up there, as it were. They all knew me, and they knew I would never do anything that wasn't trying to make the movie better. And Mike was the same way, and we were now working outside of Disney, working as writers, doing different things, and getting very serious about that. And sure enough, I think it was Bob Butler called up and said, Joe's having a tough time, can you come in and help him finish this script? Which we did. And then the third one, he got through the structure and the first sort of part of it, and then we got more and more and more involved with it with Bob again. So now we had we were becoming. I was what was I, 22 or 23 years old, something like that. I was still playing baseball. So that was still my main focus. I was playing professional baseball now at this point, which meant I was unavailable to do anything other than play baseball from February 1st till the end of October. And which made it more difficult for an actor my age. It would have obviously made it more difficult to work. But I had this place called Disney that I could go to that would come up with stuff. And now Mike and I started to write stuff together. Ron Miller was at that time the president of the studio. And we went into the last thing we did there as young guys. We had this idea to take a ride at Disneyland and turn it into a movie. Had nothing to do with the present day. It was literally going back and doing a very realistic version with a young man who had been kidnapped as a boy, and was kidnapped, and was now living on a pirate island, and was the head of a sort of treehouse gang of other young kids that had been kidnapped. And we called it Pirates of the Caribbean. And I remember walking into the office with Mike, and the script had been received very, very well. And I won't say who, but somebody said, "Do you realize this would cost? Have you done a cost expectation on this one?" We said, "Yeah. Here's where we started with the fact that we feel that there's a ceiling on Disney movies that there should not be. So we're trying to break that ceiling." Now this was in 1975, 4 or 5, and they said, "Do you realize that this will cost $14 million to make?" I said, "Well, we figured 16. And they said, "You can't do it." 2 years, and the way our show started out was with a crawl. By that I mean, like, we're looking at these note things.
Yeah.
Right? And on the big screen, it was a crawl that started, and our crawl was in the 16th century. It was back, it's like on a galaxy far, far away. I mean, it was literally that. Because we saw that 2 years later with Star Wars, and the next day they called us in the office and said, "What do you think about it?" And we said, "No, too late."
Yeah.
No, now we look like we're copying somebody, so we didn't do that. But it was Mike McGreevy and I we were headed down that way.
Yeah. So from there, when did you finally transition to full-time actor versus baseball player?
There was a doctor named Dr. Robert Curlin, who was the doctor for athletes in Los Angeles. I mean, it was, if you were a Dodger or a King or a Ram, that was where you went if you had an injury. So I'm playing baseball I was in the Texas League. I was actually leading the league at the time. And I'd gotten the call that a week from now you're going to Anaheim. You're going to be playing Angels in Anaheim Stadium. And I'm going to go to Salt Lake for a week. And that night I got hit high on the turn of the leg. I hit high. And next day I could barely get out of bed. I had to go back to Los Angeles to go see Dr. Curlin. So I'm 20. This is 1973, May of 1973, and life is perfect. I'm going to be playing second base in Anaheim Stadium in a week and a half. I mean, this is, Sandy Alomar at the time I think was hitting 143, and I'm leading the Texas League, which was a very good Double-A league. And I'm like that. And the next day, I go see Dr. Curlin. He's got a needle like that, and I look at that. Whoa! I'm gonna do this thing called an arthrogram. So he puts this needle in there, and I just about passed out. And he said, "Oh, come on!" And he had terrible arthritis. He took Bayer aspirin by the hour, and his hands were really. So he gets this, pulls the needle out, takes the picture, comes back in about 10 minutes, and he says, "Aren't you also an actor?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "Well, you're an actor all the time now." And I kind of chuckled just like that, and he left the room. I'm in there for 7 or 8 minutes by myself, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Nurse comes in. She says, "You're still here?" I said, "Yeah, I'm waiting. I need to talk to the doctor and get a diagnosis." She said, "I thought he gave you the diagnosis." I said, No, he made a joke and he left. And she goes out of the room and comes back 5 minutes later. She says, "No, you're done playing baseball. You've torn your rotator cuff. You're done." That was when I became a full-time actor. After 3 days of crying in my suit,
Sure.
I said, "Hey, stop this. There's another world out there." And the first thing that came to my mind was that weird conversation that I had with Walt Disney where he said, "You never know. You might get hurt."
Yeah. So in The Barefoot Executive, you had to work with a chimpanzee.
Mm-hmm.
How was that?
Well,
Easier than
I
actor?
mean, it's been a lot of years, so I feel like I can tell the truth.
Yeah.
That was really funny. It was constantly funny because they were funny, the chimps we had.
Yeah.
but they were also horrible. They're horrible, horrible people. And they're so smart. And this one chimp, Raffles, I think his name was. He was, head chimp. He was really good. That's probably Raffles you just saw. He was fun and everything, but he was really smart. And on this one gag, I had to pull one chimpanzee out of a box, open a box lid, pull the chimp out, put him down, get Raffles, put him in, and close the door. But it's important that I do this because the monkeys don't know what's going on. The chimps don't know what's going on. So after the second take, I reach and I get the monkey, pull him out, and I start to reach for Raffles, put him down, and I start to reach for the thing, and he reaches up and he closes the lid. Cut. That's no good. We gotta have, Kurt, you gotta close it. Kurt, be a little faster on the thing. Okay, we're now doing this because this is the way the chimp needs it done. Okay. So I now do that, but it's getting worse and worse. Now he's knocking my hand away, and the chimp guy comes over to me and he says, "Don't let him get away with that." This chimp is, he's that high. But a couple of days before, I saw that tree that my mom sat under, that Goldie walked by and said, it was about, there's some section of that tree where it's good 35 feet high. I watched one of these chimps climb up there, and he fell out of the tree and landed on his back, and it was like he woke up. I mean, it meant nothing to him. Chimps can lift 5 times their weight with one arm. I'm setting this up because this chimp was a badass, guys. I'm just telling you. So now I'm racing him to be. I said, guys, I can't make it. He said, if he reaches up there again, he said, you don't let him do that. I said, you mean hit him? He said, I mean hit him with everything you got. And by the way, he's getting rough on me, so I'm thinking, that's good by me. So he reaches up to hit my hand, and I just kind of did a short pop like that, bang. And he looked at me, and he sat down in the box, and I put the box down. So we were able to cut it together. Now, whenever I would sit here, and the trainer would sit here, I'd be here, the trainer would be here, the monkey would be here, Raffles would be here, and the trainer would be over here. Whenever the trainer would look away, the monkey he would wait for him to look away, and he wouldn't even look at me, and he'd go, bang. So now we're doing something about a week later, and he's really going off the rails. And I said, and the trainer looks at me, and I said, yeah, I got it. And this time, I whacked him, and they take him up the set, and I hear, I go by 5 people who were visiting the studio that day and looking at me like, oh my God, this is what they do at Disney?
Animal abuse.
So a lot different. I swear to God, I mean, those chimps they're tough, man.
They are.
They take
They're
it.
tough.
Yeah.
They're tough. All right. Well, also you did some voiceover work. Now, how many of you know that Kurt was Cooper, the hound dog, in The Fox and the Hound?
Yeah. I worked with Mickey Rooney, and I never met him.
Oh.
Yeah. I worked with Mickey Rooney for a long time, because those are done over long periods of time.
Yeah.
And I did the voice. I'd go in maybe 7 or 8 times, and there were always lots of scenes with Mickey, and Mickey had done his part, but I never got to do it.
Wow. All right, I'm going to speed us up here a little bit. So I want to go to some of the other
Lightning
films
round.
that you have done with Disney. I believe you were in the Guardians of the Galaxy, so that's completely different. Marvel.
Yep.
So how'd you like that?
Fantastic, great group of people. I was concerned about it because I knew that, I learned that they wanted me to play his father, and I said, I think I know what this is. And sure enough, he was going to be the bad guy. And I said, that's fine, but I don't want to be the guy that wrecks Guardians 2.
Right.
You know what I mean? Guardians of the Galaxy was a very big success, and I thought, well, this would be fun, and I love the script, and I love what it is. I just don't want to be the guy that they go, oh, I hate this guy, I hate this movie. So I was a little concerned about that, and then after meeting everybody, I felt comfortable, and I said, oh, let's go do this. I think it's really fun, and
Cool.
I love what we did.
It was very different, yeah.
Yeah, really different.
And I'm going to drive our people back here crazy, so I'm sorry, because I'm now going to flip back because I forgot. Okay, Tombstone. You told me a great story about Tombstone and how you got cast and were supposed to go in the other movie. Remember with Kevin Costner?
Yeah.
Tell everybody the story.
Do you mean how it came about?
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing?
because it's a great story
Yeah.
about how Disney took care of you too. I just love
Yeah,
that. So.
it was interesting. You know, look, I'd been there a long time. Now it's, you know, many, many years later. I've done, I don't know if I did Captain Ron before or after that, but it was, you know, that was right at the same time. So now, an old agent of mine sends me a script and he said, this should be your next movie. And I read it, and it was one of the 3 or 4 best scripts I ever read. And I called him up and I said, what's the story here? He said, you got about 24 hours to put this together. And I said, tell me about it. And what had happened was Kevin Costner was going to do that movie with, I don't know who was going to direct it actually. I'm not sure of who was going to direct it at that time. It was written by a man named Kevin Jarre, who had written Glory and some other really great scripts. And this was going to be his chance to direct. So I'd been on one of those bicycle trips, on a wine thing. A man named Andy Vanya. At the end of that, we had a goodbye party, and Andy came up to me and said, if you've ever got something that you want to do, please call me and consider that I might finance it and make it a part of it. At that time, he had a company called Corelco. So I read this and I said, man, I want to do this. And I called my agent and I said, you know, the present agent I had, the new agency, and I said, I know what I want to do next. And I think I can get it. I think I've got a chance of getting it financed, but I want to move very quickly on this. The problem was Kevin Costner was also their client. So I said, I appreciate the politics of this. I get that. And Kevin's a much bigger number for you than I am. So I understand that I'm fighting this. And he said, no, we're going to play this the way, you want in, you want to do it. I was able to get Andy Vanya to say yes. I was very fortunate in that I have a brother-in-law who's a top-end producer who was able to budget it out. I took this budget and the script to Andy and I said, I'll get you $1 back. That's all I can. I know I can get you $1 back at this number. He agreed to it. He did the movie, and now we're going to cast it and whatnot. And there were a number of guys, different roles and whatnot, but the director had cast a lot of them. One of the roles that he hadn't cast quite yet was Doc Holliday. And not Dennis Quaid, it was Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe had come in and given this nothing short of awesome reading audition interview for Doc. And now the director calls me up and says, well, we can't do it with Willem Dafoe. And I said, well, you're the director of the movie. You're about to find out whether you're going to direct this movie or somebody else is. So who's calling the shots here? And he said, well, here's the problem. And this is where I won't name a name, right? But every avenue of distribution has been shut down, except for one, Buena Vista. And he said, look, Kurt's family, we can't do that to him. If he wants to do Tombstone, and we will distribute. I knew all those Buena Vista guys. I'd been with them for years and years. And they said, well, no. So when he said Buena Vista's the only thing we got, I said, Val Kilmer, that'll work. And Val was the best thing that could have happened to Tombstone. He was spectacular at Tombstone. And I always held that as a great feeling in terms of our friendship came out of that. He did a fantastic job. And if you haven't seen that documentary of his called Val, I highly recommend it because when you see it, I know Val pretty well. I said, the thing about it is that when you see that, I'm really glad he did it because I wouldn't hesitate to hire Val with his voice box and his, all actors have something. And in the right role, the right thing, Val Kilmer would be spectacular. He's a great actor. So anyway, that was how that was. And by the way, here's something I haven't told you. 3 weeks before we started, Andy calls me up and he says, okay, I got one more thing to throw at you. I said, what? He said, what would you think I could get you $5 million more to make the movie if you play Doc Holliday? Which I had, when I read the script, I originally said, this is the great role. He said, if you play Doc Holliday and Richard Gere plays Dwight Earp, and I said, yeah, I think we're good the way we are. Nothing against Richard Gere, but I think it's a better mix with what we got.
I agree. So you and Goldie recently everything's the matter.
How you doing over there?
I'm doing good. Doing good. I gotta keep asking you hard questions. So you got the Hollywood stars. Do you want to talk about that experience? Because you got them at the same time, correct?
Yeah, I mean, Goldie had been asked, I had been asked in the past, and then, it's one of those things where you begin to find out, well, how does this happen? And you go, wait a minute, you have to pay for this? I said, never doing that.
Yeah.
I'm going to pay to have a star on Hollywood. That's embarrassing. I mean, really, wouldn't you think? I mean, it's like, no, I'm not doing that. And finally, the situation came up, and I said, no, I'm not. Let me tell you something. There's one thing that's not going to happen. Kurt Russell's not going down on the ground before Goldie Hawn is. And I said, why don't you guys do us together? And I said, really, do it together. And they did. And I always appreciated Alan Horn, who at that time was the president of Disney, because I believe it was Alan Horn. I thanked him, but I never knew it to be I think Alan Horn was the one who said, pay the money for the thing. it's 15 grand or something. It's not, it's not earth shattering, but anyway, we had a great day. I was really kind of surprised.
Really cute.
I thought it was just going to be this embarrassing old Hollywood thing, and it was like, no, it was really great. Tarantino spoke for me. Reese Witherspoon spoke for Goldie. My mom was there. We had family members there, and I said, I always poo-poo stuff. It's embarrassing. I don't know. It's the way our family was brought up. It's like, showing off or doing whatever. It's like, don't. And to accept an award like that, it's like, what do you say? I mean, and it turned out to be really I learned a lot. I learned a lesson. It was like, what? Sometimes it's just really cool, and you just say, thank you. This is really nice.
Well, if you haven't, you should watch it's a very sweet ceremony, and it really gives you a good insight of what a special relationship you and Goldie have. So, really a lot of fun. And I should mention, by the way, it is a family affair because your son Wyatt also was recently in one of our Marvel things. He was Johnny Walker in The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
The Russells have covered the bad guys for Marvel.
Well, that is great. That is great. So anyway, well, we have enjoyed our time so much here together. Now,
Good seeing you.
I have to say that it's very important is Gogi Wines does have a wonderful wine club. And Jamie, who is, as Kurt said, his sister, I adore her. She's a lot of fun. And she would kill me if I did not do this plug. But this is actually cool, just so you all know, if you actually apply to become in the wine club, he has to approve you. So he approves every member.
We have a very small one.
It's not going to become one of these things of thousands, and they do a lovely release party every year, and look at that. So hopefully you all have enjoyed your wine today, and you can check out Gogi Wines and the Disney family of wines and do that. So thank you so much.
It's good seeing you. Claire has been in our home. She's been a very big part of Gogi Wines, and I first of all want to thank you for all of that and your friendship. And it's nice to be able to see you.
It's nice, so very nice. All right, great. Well, thank you all very, very much. Appreciate it.